Thank you. So I got volunteered to be the starter, but the good thing of being a starter is you start and then you hand over the microphone and the intelligence takes over. I must say I saw a lot of things that I recognize from the job that I do in this presentation, and I can confirm the bad news, but more importantly also the good news, because it is not all bad news. In the job that I'm doing, we're a technology company and we work in the HR space, so we work with jobs, professions, competences, skills all the time. And when you look at all the jobs in the world, they actually boil down to about 3,000 to 3,500 different types of jobs, different professions. And we're also looking at the so-called jobs of the future, and right now I got anything between 500 and 800 of them already. That depends whether you want the space tourism officer already as a real new job or not. But I've got hundreds and hundreds, which means out of these 3,000 to 3,500, yeah, maybe 500, 1,000 get lost, but new ones come in. And I think the big challenge is not, the world is not, the world of work is not ending, it's just changing. I think the biggest challenge for all of us is, are we prepared, and we being education, you know, are our schools, our trainings, are we preparing people for these changes? So schooling, companies, are we training ourselves? And I thought, hey, maybe that's a good starter, and I go, so what do you think about that?
Very nice, very nice. I'm not going to be the chair for this. I'm going to leave that to you, but I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit. Mahendran, like what Susie said, I've gone through a whole transformation. So very, very much interested in the sciences, but then I became an architect and I kind of married it together, the arts, the creative sector, and technology. So it was always there. So art, so I was neither good at science nor the arts. So I said, what can I do? I'll become an architect. So, and from there, I kind of, then I kind of felt, and I knew that I was good at both. So, and then I started exploring a little bit more, so into technology. And so today what I'm doing really is advocating advanced manufacturing technology, 3D printing. And 3D printing, as we speak, it touches many touch points, right? So from what you're wearing, from your glasses can be 3D printed, from the limb that is missing that can be a prosthetic that's 3D printed, to the kind of food that you're eating, and also the pills that you're taking, so your nephew doesn't need to be a doctor to administer pills. It's all based on artificial intelligence also, as well, to understand the human body, individual customization, customized medication, and also food and how we travel, etc., etc. So it's a whole new world. So, you know, so I've got very young children and I tell them the same thing. So equip yourself with a lot of knowledge because the future, as we rightfully heard from Vlad just a short while ago, 20 to 30 years, we're not sure how it's going to be. I mean, I don't think my parents envisaged this. My dad is 92 and he has got no clue what I'm doing today. I talked to him about 3D printing. He's like still trying to wrap his head around it. And it's in his generation, right? He's seen all of that, from the war to right to where we are today. And where we are today to where it's going to be, where our kids are going to come out to the market and find out all of those things. That's going to be quite interesting, and I hope in this panel we can try to touch on some of those things. And it's my time to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mahendran. Good afternoon, this is Jessie. I'm from a company called Connectere. I believe a lot of you might not have heard about it, but we have been passionately delving in English proficiency for the past 19 years. I'm one of those that I call privileged, that I've seen through from horse riding, trishaws, cars, big computers operating on 286. Yes. All the way to AI in the present day. I am privileged, I must say. And why English, you might ask? I was previously a banker for 23 years and then decided to hop over and just change, you know, because I love English. And why English? It's because in Singapore, quite unlike a lot of countries around the world, or rather around Asia, we are primarily using English for practically everything. I think a lot of us do have the misperception in a way that if a person cannot speak English, means the person cannot, you know, he's not proficient. But I think a lot of times in just very nominal job, even in a hawker center kind of thing. If a person who has the level of proficiency to just listen and understand, the person may not be able to produce a language, the person can still operate in a job. I mean, simple thing is if you walk in and somebody just look at you when you make an order and the person, you know, that's a zero proficiency compared to someone who can blurt out in Hokkien and then get you your maybe prawn noodles, you know. That's the minimum proficiency to be able to operate in Singapore, I would think. That's why we delve into this. And going on to AI, it is magnificent. The things that come out, it has helped not just performance of a job, but it also helps in the education aspect as well, because a lot of companies have already come out with programs, training programs on how to train the language, train English language using AI, you know, that virtual reality and all that. And it has proven to be quite successful. All in all, I would say that although AI is, I don't like to use the word although, but yes, AI is helping a lot in many areas, but there are certain areas in life that I do feel, and I still feel that AI may not be able to overtake. First and foremost is emotions. If you're a psychiatrist, it's difficult to use a computer, you know, to diagnose and so forth. So at the bottom line, I would think English is still the language to be used, whether for programming, for operation and all. And for ease of upgrading the technology, it has to be a common communication language in that sense. So with that, I will hand over to our speaker.
Well, and I'm trying to answer the question. I think it's not going to be an isolated effort, but it's going to be it needs to be a group effort between companies, educational institutions, and government. And when we see how we teach our kids today, and there is usually a core curriculum, and then they start to become a little bit more taking all those electives when they're in university. Let's talk about university. But that knowledge today, the knowledge that they learned on first and second year, by the time that they graduate, it's already obsolete. So how we can deal with it? And I think governments and companies, they will need to get together and think about what are the paths, and especially when we're talking about reskilling and upskilling and the current workforce. I was with Minister and Josephine Tell a few months ago, and we're talking about this change in career path. And she was talking about, which is an experiment that is going on today, is let's look at the current set of skills that a certain worker has, and let's try to match with the new era technology that we have. And we've seen examples of people who drive trucks, who drive buses, being able to become airplane pilots because the concepts are the same, especially with the technology that is in planes today. We just saw, I think it was Boeing this week, that had the first takeoff fully automatic. There was no pilot, people involvement in taking off. So we are working in that direction. So how we can transform, and for that we're going to need to work together. Companies, and educational institutions, and the government, to give them that framework on how we can upskill and reskill really fast.
I want to add one thing, because it looks like AI, machine learning, deep learning. Don't worry if you don't know the difference, nobody does, but people use these words all the time. It looks like that's going to solve every single problem in the world, but there's one thing that will never go away, and not at least in the next 100 years, and that's human creativity, interpretation, reflection. And why do I say that? In the field where I work on text analysis. So we have algorithms that try to read a text as a human would do, and a human reads text in a contextual way. When I say I picked up money at the bank, then you all know that I went to a financial institution and not to a river bank. And you know that, not because you understand the word, but you got the context right. Okay, so that's more or less what we do. And in text analyzing, AI, machine learning, deep learning, is really not there yet, not at all. AI can make a plane lift off without anybody there, but AI reading text is something different. I'll give you a very direct, I've got a lot of respect for what Amazon does in many different ways, but I'm not sure whether you heard about the big HR machine that Amazon built. A couple of years ago, Amazon said, we've hired and fired thousands and 10,000s of people, and we got millions of resumes in over the last years. Let's build this intelligent machine that will look at a CV, at a resume, and say, hire, not hire, in that division, is going to stay 5 years, and this and that. They built a machine with hundreds of people and so many millions. The machine got ready and did exactly that. And the machine was discriminatory, racist, and everything you want. Why? Because it was built on machine learning. And what does a machine do? It takes all the information, and it saw that Johnny got the job more easily than Ahmed. And Johnny, by the way, got the job more easily than Mary. And Johnny, who was 30 years old, got the job easier and more and often than John, who was 50 years old. And the machine learned that. Based on all the historical data, it learned that that is the truth. So they built this machine, and at the end of day one, they shut it down, and they will never do that again. So I'm just saying that is an example where machine learning or AI does not solve the world. We had the same thing back in Europe with the legal AI machine, a very bright machine. Lawyers would just have to type in what the problem was, the thing would read in all of the law cases, and then it would say, this is how it's solved. Yeah, until you stumble upon verdicts of 5 and 10 and 20 years ago when the law was different and when it was okay to lock up, you know, the wife because she divorced the man and whatever and whatever. So I'm just saying human reflection and human thought will always play a big role. It's not that all of a sudden computers will take over the world. That's a rather long reflection, but it's heartfelt. So although I am in AI, I'm saying that it's not going to solve the world. We, maybe not me, but you are, okay? People are.
No, for sure. I think people are. So, and which is why there's so much emphasis on big data, analytics, etc. So whatever we are doing today, you know, every step that we take, every move that we make, it's all made sense by some machine out there, and it's just churning it back, and which is why everything that we do, there's a value to it, right? It's $250, $40, you say, per year, and it's growing, and it's bigger. So, and everybody is getting onto the bandwagon and coming with new applications, how they can harness that. It's very powerful today. And I'm in the business of 3D printing, and we are very, very clued in to this space around the world, and we see also from the fact that, you know, with all those trade sanctions that and the trade war that's going on between China and the US. Currently, as we speak, I am familiar with a startup in China which is collecting all the data from the Americans and putting into their AI to come up with a new prototype car that is specifically for the American market. And they're not going to build it in China because they've got partners in the US, and they're going to get all these information, send it over the web, over there, and they're gonna manufacture and print it in China. A 3D printed automobile for the American market that is really being designed and created in China. So there you have it. It's really about distributed manufacturing and really harnessing the power of artificial intelligence coming up. New startups are coming out, and you know, so our children, as we say, you know, don't do the traditional studies of being a lawyer and a doctor and an architect. Go get yourself into these fields, because you know, you don't know what's there, and become an entrepreneur, start a startup, you know, go and get yourself hurt, fall down, hurt yourself, and go and pitch to VCs out there. There's a lot of money floating around that you can actually, you know, make something out of, and create a life and make meaning out of it. And that's a lot more meaningful through that, what, you know, kind of like passion that this brings to you, not necessarily in AI. I mean, it could be in anything, but yes, so those are examples of how AI is really impacting our life.
Thank you. Well, I think being a mother and a woman, I think it is the emotional part of things that's coming into play here. When you talk about education, AI technologies and all, I think it is fantastic that we are advancing in so many different areas. But the bottom line, I still feel the values that need to be inculcated into our children remains the same. the basic human values, the moral values, and so forth. Well, and moving on from that to, I think I touched a little bit about emotions earlier, which I think at this point in time, probably AI might not have reached that level of accurately deciphering voices yet, as well as, let's say if you take an example of in a war, you send in a robot to fight. Well, that's the safest. You don't harm human beings. But when you take down a village, for example, you move the whole troop in to take down a village. You bang, open up the door, and then you see women and children and men. But the computer, the robot is programmed to just shoot and take down the village. So there is no emotion involved. You know, they would just bam, you know, the whole troop would just go, whether you're sick, woman, or children. So that's the part that hinges on for a woman like me, and many mothers here too, I think. So yes, as much as we embrace technology, we can't run away from it. We need to educate our children in the right way to handle everything, and it's not just a computer. Thank you.
And just for a final thought, when I'm talking to senior executives today and we're talking about the kind of workforce that they are looking for in the future, we do look at CVs, we do look at the previous experience, but when you talk to business heads, CEOs, what's really driving them is, beyond all of that, is mindset. When you hire someone today, the question that you need to ask is, okay, this person is the right person to be in my firm, in my company today, but is it the right person to be in 5 years' time? Where my company is heading, will this be the right person? And I ask this question when I'm talking to a group of executives, and I ask them to raise their hands. And more than half raise their hands, says, more than half of my leadership team today is not ready for where the company needs to be in 5 years' time. So we need to start looking as well at mindset to be able to change. And the new generation, especially in Asia, is getting ready for that, because they are growing up in a place that has been disrupted over the last few years. We see the 1800s, it was the century of England. The 1900s was US. The 2000s is the Asian century. And our kids, they are getting ready because they are growing up in that disruption, so they already have that mindset to change.
Wendy, I'm enamored that you've decided to take on English as a subject to pursue after your corporate life. I'm curious to find out, you know that if you speak French or German, the structure of the language is predominantly on gender. And if you speak Mandarin, everything's structured on the present, specific character. And if you speak English, it's structured on the past, present, and the future. And this invariably affects the cuisine you create, the literature you write, the scientific language you create, and also AI. What are your views on this and English?
From my very shallow, narrow knowledge of technology, I think technology programming is quite uniform. But I think a lot of programming has been done in English. I mean, machines being shipped around the world, you know, they are all in English. And my personal belief is still using English would be the best way for us to move forward cohesively, collectively. Nothing wrong with French, German, Portuguese, or whatever. But if I'm not wrong, I think technology has a way of transferring those, or you know, translating those into actionable items, so to speak, for the computer or for AI. Am I right to say that? For people with technology knowledge? I do not really think that in terms of programming, computer advancing in technology, language is a big hurdle. But having a uniform language, being able to speak and understand a widely used language like English, it does help a lot with the progress.
I don't know. I mean, I personally think that language should not be a barrier for any technology, really. Technology is technology. 3D printing is 3D printing, whether you do it in Chinese, Malay, or Indian, or whatever, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, or anything, any language. So technology is technology, and really at the end of the day, it's what's the value that it brings to us, the human species. We're not talking about alien invasion here, etc., and all that. It's all really far-fetched. But I think really, so for the Chinese market, you know, so everything predominantly has been Chinese, and for the Indian market, perhaps English is really predominant there, so it's fine, good all. So for the Germans, they're still very much German-based, so that's good. And the Germans are really good in technology, and they have been always leading the space, and they've taught everything in German. Does that make it any less better because they've used German versus English? I don't think so. But I think really the fundamentals, the principles, what do you harness out of your knowledge? It doesn't matter which medium it can be. I think it's more important rather than the language itself.
And I think if there is one area where AI or machine learning or whatever helps to cross that barrier, then it is language. What we do, for example, is we have cross-language applications. That means that you could send your CV in Chinese and it'll be matched with a Portuguese job description or the other way around. We're actually, right now, we're launching a platform in Rio de Janeiro, a job platform where people can apply for jobs by simple text messaging or by speaking. You know, they can just say, I'm a plumber and I do this and that and whatever, and they can do it in Portuguese and they'll get the jobs even if the jobs are maybe written in English. I mean, it works across language. That's exactly what technology helps to cross that barrier of language, whether it's spoken or written or any other shape or form.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Haiyan here. I used to be an educator in the MOE system for 10 years, and I left the system in 2017. Decided I have to do something about education. So in the past 2 years, I've researched on trends on the future of jobs, future of technology, and what are the skills that children need to learn in order not to be replaced by AI. And I'm very heartened that all the expertise and panelists over here mentioned that it's the human skills. It is the emotions, it is the creativity, it is our social intelligence. And in the past 2 years, I, together with Mr. Jack Sim, which is one of the keynote speakers later, and our colleagues over here, we developed this 6C framework. I brought 20 copies over here, and it's about calm, it's about compassion, curiosity, courage, commitment, and collaborations. But in that journey, I felt it is very interesting that while everybody is talking about technology replacing human, but the investor, the government initiative, support a lot of technology development rather than humanity development. So if I have to talk to the VC, the VC will ask, is your solution ed tech? If I have to talk to the government, and then the government will go ask, is your solution regarding smart education?
If you don't mind, is there a question in there?
Yeah. So I would like your feedback and your point on how to actually encourage people to really work towards developing more humanity rather than continue talking about technology, investment in technology, rather than investment in humanity. Yeah.
I think I would go back to what Jessie mentioned before. I think it's still, a lot of that comes from our family structure and all those values. And of course that today there are many of these skills or human abilities that we need to keep on nurturing, we need to keep developing. But, and that said, we need to develop this human side alongside the technology side. We cannot escape technology anymore. Technology is here, it's not going away. So we need to juggle both the emotional side or the interpersonal side with the technology. And I think that will come from early on early ages.
I mean, from a mother's perspective again, a lot of things that we want to teach our kids, we want to start them from young, learning the right principles and all. Because eventually when they come out to work, when they develop, when they create technology, when they create robots and so forth, they will still have those imbibed principles with them that they have to operate from that perspective. nothing wrong with technology. I think, like what Wladmir have said, you know, we have to move with times. If we hold back, we will be behind time in a sense. So advancement is, in a way, dependent on the advancement of technology that we can come up with, but we must never forget that, yes, the emotional, the social, the humanity side needs to still stay with us.
One small remark as the bell. I tend to see AI as augmented intelligence. That means it's there to help us, to make us do things better, smarter, faster, and so on. I don't see it that much as artificial, being a computer replacing a man, and that's whatever we develop, it's augmented intelligence. It's there to help, not necessarily to replace.
Just the last one. I'm around for the rest of the day, so come and talk to me. Thanks.
Thank you.